What's going on, everybody? Marvel the Cross 316 back in another comic book flashback. Today we are looking at the Ultimate Spider-Man issue number 8. Today's title is Working Stiff. And so we recall from last issue, in issue 7, that Spider-Man had fought the Ultimate Green Goblin, and the Ultimate Green Goblin was defeated, but he also, we don't know for sure, is he dead or is he alive? We're not sure, but now we're continuing the story here, and we're going to look at just the life of Peter Parker. We're going to see that he gets a job at the Daily Bugle in this issue, and he also comes across the Ultimate Shocker in this issue as he makes his debut in this issue. So you see the Ultimate Shocker, he's going to try to rob this armored truck here and get the money, as all big supervillains are always after, is they're always after money, it seems like. And we see that Spider-Man right here, the Ultimate Spider-Man that is going to take the Ultimate Shocker down, and he does it pretty easily, I have to say. We see that the Ultimate Spider-Man here, he's going to use his wisecracks here. He said, "Who are you supposed to be, the Vibrator?" And so this is the first time that the Ultimate Spider-Man fights the Ultimate Shocker. And so what Spider-Man does here, he webs up the Shocker's vibrating gloves here, and it causes a short circuit, and it electrifies Ultimate Shocker, and he's ultimately defeated here. Spider-Man notices that he could have disarmed him in a better way that could have caused him to die. And so upon defeating Shocker here, he just goes to the policeman and he says, "Hey, I just defeated this guy, and you're safe to go." And then we see here that the police officer's like, "Just take it. I don't want it." So the police think that Ultimate Spider-Man here is right in line with all these other supervillains, and so that's one thing that Ultimate Spider-Man is going to have to figure out, is how can he clear his name, um, because the public are pretty new to Spider-Man. This is only the 8th issue, and so Spider-Man is still pretty new to the scene. And so Spider-Man, he just leaps off. He's like, "You know what? I'll see you later. That money, that briefcase of money, that doesn't really match anything else in my wardrobe." So once again, Spider-Man with his wisecracks. So like I said, we're going to be introduced to the Daily Bugle. More of that's coming up. But also, we catch up with some of Peter Parker's classmates here, and we learn that there is a hefty price for a picture of Spider-Man, because the Daily Bugle wants a picture of Spider-Man, and they will pay anyone a pretty big price for a picture of Spider-Man. And one person that almost was able to get a picture was Kong here. And so he was there during that whole fight, that whole scene with Spider-Man taking down the Shocker. Kong was out there in the midst of the crowd watching it all take place, but he didn't have a camera. So he's telling, Liz Allen and Flash Thompson all about what's going on. And he's like, I swear to goodness, I saw Spider-Man with my own eyes. And we know that Flash Thompson here, he's a good friend of Kong, and he is basically saying, "Look, you were going to cry to mommy because you saw Spider-Man at our school when that whole scene took place last issue, remember, or last 2 issues, with the Green Goblin attacking Spider-Man at Midtown High." And so, upon all this discussion, Peter Parker overhears this, and so Peter Parker gets the idea, "You know what? I'm going to take pictures of myself, since I really am Spider-Man." So we see right here that Peter Parker's going to take pictures of himself acting like he's fighting crime. And these pictures are the only pictures in existence of Spider-Man. And so we see here that Peter Parker is going to go to the Daily Bugle, and this is where he's going to try to sell these pictures of Spider-Man to J. Jonah Jameson. And so we see here that the Ultimate Daily Bugle here in this Ultimate Universe looks a lot different than the Daily Bugle and the regular Spider-Man universe, as we see that there's elevators. I mean, it's very more modern, as we can tell here. And we see that Peter Parker is approaching the desk here, he says, "Look, I have an appointment with Joe Robertson." And so we see that the lady up front allows Peter Parker to go up front to the where he's going to meet Joe Robertson and JJJ, our famous, J. Jonah Jameson. And so we have this all just taking place. We got cubicles here, a lot of different things that we're seeing here, a lot of commotion going on. We see Ben Ulrich. He's another worker there that works at the Daily Bugle. And we also see Betty Brant. She also works at the Daily Bugle in this Ultimate Universe. And she's in charge of fixing the website. More on that here to come. So upon this whole discussion and stuff, we see that Peter Parker breaks the conversation by showing pictures of Spider-Man. And so we see J. Jonah Jameson's like, "Where'd you get these?" And he said, "He came to my school." He said, "You go to Midtown?" He said, "Yes." And he's like, "And you took these?" "Yes." Then it's funny here. Funny scene here. J. Jonah Jameson's like, "Crap, crap, crap. What do you take these with? A disposable camera? Crap, crap." This is pretty unique of J. Jonah Jameson here. This is exactly how he would act. And so he shows one picture to Joe Robertson. He's like, "Oh, that's pretty good." And he's like, "All right, how old are you?" And he keeps saying, "Well, I'm 16. Well, we know that Peter Parker's not 16. He's actually 15. And this is where Betty Brant here is. She's like, "God." And she's like, "What is it?" He said, "I can't fix this. The internet sucks, and I'm working on this whole website, and I don't understand computers. Computers at this time, since this is the early 2000s, computers were pretty new." And so we see here that Peter Parker actually knows a good bit about just the internet and the software behind computers, and so he shows his knowledge here. J. Jonah Jameson is pretty impressed by Peter Parker's knowledge, and he offers Peter Parker a job at the Daily Bugle. And so we see here that Peter Parker is going to call Aunt May to get her on the phone so that he can get permission to get the job. We see that J. Jonah Jameson is going to speak with Aunt May, and upon speaking with Aunt May, J. Jonah Jameson finds out that Peter Parker is actually 15. And so we see that Peter Parker swindled money out from J. Jonah Jameson, but Peter Parker does get the job. And so that's how Peter Parker gets the job at the Daily Bugle in this universe. Now we come across this new scene here. We see Spider-Man. He's swinging through the city, and he looks like he's going into this dark alley. And this is where we see the murderer of Uncle Ben, and we see a gunshot fire, and we see that Uncle Ben is splattered with blood. And we notice here that this is actually a nightmare. So we see Peter Parker wakes up from his nightmare, and we see that Aunt May is going to come and console with him and just comfort him, as it was just a deadly nightmare. They're still trying to get over the death of Uncle Ben. So the next day in school, we see that Peter Parker is still thinking about just the death of his uncle. He's wanting to get revenge on just all of crime in New York. He wants to put a stop to it. That's his main mission as being Spider-Man. So after school, he goes to the Daily Bugle. This is his first day on the job, and he's going to use the driver's license that he had recovered from that big scene with Uncle Ben's murderer here. He uses that to look up just a little bit about the murderer of Uncle Ben, and he comes across some pretty interesting information here as we learn that Uncle Ben's murderer was actually working for the Kingpin, and it's Wilson Fisk. And so this is the first time we see Wilson Fisk in this universe. We see Peter Parker. He asks Joe Robertson, "Hey, Mr. Robertson." He's like, "Yeah, what's up, Peter?" And he's like, "Well, I was wondering about, the Kingpin and all his organization of crime. Like, why isn't he being taken down, and why does he get away with so much here in New York?" And Joe Robertson pretty much levels with Peter Parker and says, "Well, look, if we did take down the Kingpin, Wilson Fisk, there would just be some other dude to take his place. So that's the reason why they're not putting any effort towards defeating the Kingpin, Wilson Fisk, because there is just a huge organization of crime. Plus, Wilson Fisk bought stock in the Daily Bugle, and so we see here that Peter Parker's like, well, you know what? I'm not going to buy all that. I'm going to take down Wilson Fisk for myself. And so this is a huge, huge leap here. Will Peter Parker, who is pretty fresh, he's still not trained, not well trained in his powers. He's still pretty new as Spider-Man. If he goes and tries to take down Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, we're not too sure if he's going to be successful in that. So we'll see what happens next issue in issue number 9. Hope to see you there. As always, go ahead and click that subscribe button, and also like this video, comment down below what you thought about this issue, and until next time, keep reading comics.